Hello and welcome. I'm Sue Palmer-Conn, aka the Divorce Doctor, and I welcome you to Heart with the Divorce Doctor and friends. Whether you or a loved one are considering divorce, in the midst of it, or coming out of it, this show is what you need to listen to. Divorce seems to affect everyone in some way. It can be an overwhelming life event, not only for the person going through it, but for friends and family of those divorcing too. We are here to walk the path with you, bringing you specialists who can help you make better decisions, provide you with resources, and give you ideas about how to be your best self in a time that, quite frankly, can bring out the worst in you. And today, I'm so excited to be here with an amazing woman I'm proud to call my friend, Lorraine Thomas. Lorraine is CEO of the Parent Coaching Academy that works with individuals, schools, and employers supporting and empowering parents. She's an international speaker and an author and national resilience spokesperson for Disney's Inside Out, one of my favourite films. Hi, Lorraine.
Hi, Steve. Thank you very much. That all sounds quite a lot, doesn't it? But actually, my most important job is being a mum, of course.
Of course. So, can you tell us a little bit about how parent coaching works?
Yeah, and actually, Sue, when I first trained as a life coach, I was kind of like a martini coach, anytime, any place, anywhere. But my passion was always for supporting parents. Because I'd gone into that line because I was pregnant with my daughter Holly, and she's 18 now. And so my passion was for supporting parents, and I've had a really fantastic 18 years. Actually, it's been a real sort of privilege for me to work with mums and dads in that most important job they do in their lives, and across all the kind of different sectors. So with charities, with schools, and with parents in companies. And actually, when I first started, that was something that didn't happen in companies. Work was work and home was home, and you would never go in and say, "Oh, I had a sleepless night," or "My teenager didn't come home," or we're getting separated and it's really difficult at home. And that's all really changed, thank goodness. So I think there's a lot more conversation and dialogue, and support available for parents. So in terms of me, I work with parents in all those different kind of places. I also work with schools, so sort of training senior leadership teams who are trying to engage with parents, particularly actually, younger teachers who don't have so much experience when it comes to sort of supporting parents through life-changing kind of moments like separation, divorce, bereavement, serious illness. And so I kind of also work with children in the schools as well, and sort of privately. So I love that kind of joined up approach, just trying to help everyone. Because, divorce, and you do a fantastic job, Sue. You really do an amazing job, and I can't recommend you enough, because I know how brilliant you are at what you do. You're professional, you have a passion, and there's such a massive need. Everywhere you look now, there are children who are, and like you say, either their families are going through some sort of separation or divorce, or they're involved in some way, and it's a really difficult time for all families. And so I think it's really important that we can give them, that support, those tips, those tools.
Yeah. So how does it actually benefit the children and the parents, when you do this coaching?
So I think in terms of the coaching that I do, I'm not really the expert. You ask my children and they would say, I've got a lot of things to learn. But actually, I do love the work that I do, because I do see the changes that children can bring about in their own lives, and parents can bring about in their own lives and in their families. Actually, all the things that I know, sort of talk about and are really important at times when parents are going through something like separation and divorce, are actually really good practices for all families at all times. Because I think, for me, the key thing is to help parents and children manage their whole range of emotions. So and to do that on a daily basis, to get really practiced at that. So when something really painful comes along, like my parents are separating, or they're divorcing, that actually children and families have those tools in their toolkit to think, this is going to be tough, and there's no two ways about it. It's going to be really tough and really painful. It can be really difficult, but actually they have the tools to manage that whole range of emotions. Because I think, particularly at times around separation and divorce, there are all sorts of emotions that are coming, up and down, aren't they? There's fear, there's sadness, there's anger, and kind of, I think always it's, with children, their behaviour is like the tip of the iceberg, isn't it? The tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
And so we really want to tune into that emotion that's driving that, because often, at home and at school, for example, their behaviour can present in a really challenging way, quite angry, because they're trying to make sense of something which is really difficult for them to make sense of, that they don't want to happen. And that can come out in their behaviour in a whole range of ways. And so I think for teachers and for parents, and for me, when I'm talking to children, it's really important to get below that tip of the iceberg and to find out, what the emotion is that's driving the children, and to help them to manage that emotion, and to know that, all emotions are natural and normal. That's why I love sort of Inside Out, really, because, they're all there, aren't they? And they all have a part to play. It's not some are good and some are bad. It's not that anger's, bad and joy is good. They all have a part to play. They're all natural and normal. And I think, children and parents can spend, and me as well, I work at all these things on a daily basis. We can spend a lot of time and energy trying to push anger away, push fear away, push sadness away. And actually, I really want to get children and parents to the point where they say, come on in, I can handle you, I can manage you. And so I have kind of 3 E's. When I'm talking to parents and to children, I kind of have this little journey that I'm hoping that I can kind of take them on. And, it's E, 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 and it's to engage with them. I think for children particularly, and parents will know this, that one of the things that children can dread is kind of being a headlight conversation. Come on, let's talk about this, and they're kind of just like you and me. If someone sits there and says, like, come on, Lorraine, tell me about this. It's when you're in that kind of situation, it's really difficult to kind of open up and to talk. And so I think that engage is really important. And if you're going through separation and divorce as a parent, those kisses, those cuddles, that physical contact, that connection, not perfection, and actually kind of really engaging with your children at the level that they are, and remembering to have, in moments of darkness, remembering to kind of celebrate those moments of joy.
Absolutely.
As well. Because that's the foundation to build on, isn't it? That's something we can draw on. And so that's engage with the children. Lots of parents that I work with, and you may well find the same, Sue, they actually find it much easier to talk to their children outside of the house. When they're taking the dog for a walk, kicking the ball around, doing just something where they're both a little bit, more relaxed, and outside of the house, that fresh air. We know there are lots of really good sort of, well-being aspects to being out there if you can. So that engage, that explore how your children are feeling. And I think, for children and for adults, we say, don't we, name it and tame it. Give that emotion, the way you're feeling, a name, because it's the first step to thinking, I can manage that. So name it, name it and tame it. And the third E is really empower. So I think quite often, as parents, and I do this as well, I'm working at this all the time, we can be tempted to kind of step in and solve our children's problems and their issues and find solutions, because we want them to be as happy and as confident and as secure as they can in a very what can be unhappy and insecure situation. I think that the most important thing for me is to empower, and that's to listen to the children, and to actually get them to start thinking about what they can do that will help them to manage that emotion, and to make connections with other parts of their lives. So I had one little boy, actually, his parents were going through a very acrimonious divorce, and he was really struggling at lots of different levels, and he found it really difficult to talk to, and he blamed himself. That's another really sort of common thing. They would argue about him, and he would feel it was his fault. And actually, he was a really fantastic sports person, and he was a great, on the football field, he was a great team captain. And he was really determined, and he would be really courageous, and he would really help other team members when they were feeling disappointed. And so actually when I was you know, when we were talking, we didn't sit in a room and talk. We went and kicked a ball around on a football field, you know, just to remind him
Yeah.
of those real sort of, you know, those skills, those qualities, those values, those strengths that he has inside him that can help him through this at a time when he feels he can't step forward. And I think as a parent, you know, that's a really important thing that we can do for our children, you know, to really kind of build that core resilience that's based on evidence. It's not just something we're saying, to help them know that all of those strengths are portable, and in those moments of darkness, you know, that they have them inside and that they have them and they can use them.
Yeah, and that's such a valuable lesson for children to learn, isn't it? You know, if they're good in one area, they're very often then that feeling of being good
Mm.
spills over into other areas.
Mm. Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know, every child has got something that they can excel in.
Yeah,
It's just a
absolutely.
matter of finding it and then channeling it
Yeah, and remembering it. You
and
know, because we're in
remembering it.
those
Yeah,
moments where we're kind of really struggling with something, whatever that might be. You know, that's the time that we forget those things, isn't it? And so
yeah,
kind of we really want to remember those. And I think for parents as well, you know, I know I've worked with a lot of parents in lots of different difficult situations, but you know, for them it's remembering to look after themselves, to create that environment on a daily basis where, you know, families can talk about feelings. You know, is it, you know, you want it to be age appropriate, but you also want, you know, parents to be able to talk to the children about how they feel, you know, to know that it's okay to talk about feelings, you know, that, you know, when and what they do when they feel that anger, that fear, that sadness. Because I spoke to a mum actually last week, and she's just come through you know, really difficult divorce, and she has 3 children. And she said, Lorraine, you know, the most important thing that came out of our conversations together was that I realized that I was, you know, I was focusing so much anger and energy, you know, on my ex, and it wasn't, you know, it wasn't helping at all. Do you know, by the time I told 3 friends about the awful things he'd done and the way he behaved, I didn't feel any better. You know,
no,
I felt
no,
worse. And so actually just thinking, okay, I'm really going to focus as a mum on what I can do that's inside my control, that I can manage, and know that there are certain things, and your partner's behavior, you know, whether that's mum and dad or mum and mum or dad and dad, your partner's behavior is outside your control. And
exactly.
so actually, you know, kind of using that stress and recycling it into an energy that can help you move forward, I think is a really important tool for parents to be able to use.
Yeah, because every time they tell their story, they're just re-energizing those memories.
Yeah,
So, you know, what we're trying to tell them to do is turn the volume down
yeah, yeah,
until, you know, it becomes insignificant.
yeah. And and
And
Dan
but
Siegel, Sue, you've probably come across him. He
yeah,
talks
yeah,
about the upstairs and the downstairs brain. And
yeah,
I think for children actually, and for parents going through any kind of life changing or just, you know, actual normal family moments that are tricky, I think it's a really good sort of visual way to explain to children and to parents what is happening in your brain. Because, you know, for children particularly, they can feel overwhelmed by the emotion, you know, kind of as though they're really paralyzed by it. And actually he, you know, Dan Siegel talks about the upstairs and the downstairs part of the brain, and I know you're an expert in that whole area, but you know, for me it's an easy way to explain, and that children and parents get. And that downstairs part of the brain, that limbic region, which is the emotional engine room, so when they feel angry or fearful or sad, it comes in like, you know, charging like, you know, an electric current. The upstairs part of their brain, that much more rational, helps them to make good choices, to be brave, to look at their skills and strengths, think about how they've managed challenges before, think about who they can ask for help. That's another really important thing, isn't it? And normally that upstairs and the downstairs part of the brain, you know, they're connected, they're in balance. You know, but when our children sort of get angry about what's going on at home, or we as parents, you know, get angry, you know, there is a neurological reaction, and we do actually lose that connection between the upstairs and the downstairs part of our brain. And this
yeah,
downstairs part, like you say, it's the much louder voice. You know, it's really in our ear, and we can't hear that upstairs part of the brain. And so that's what happens, isn't it? And that's why we feel that we're paralyzed. Um, and actually that part of our brain is much better developed. It won't develop sort of really very well in children until they're in their mid-20s. So
That's
the
right.
whole of the time they're at school and maybe university and beginning to work, that downstairs part of the brain, that emotional voice is a really loud one. And so helping us as parents to understand that and think, how can we get back down like that, because that's the way we can start to manage those emotions and
Yeah.
actually teach our children that they're not going, there's not something sort of going wrong in how they're feeling. There's a reason in their brain that they're feeling overwhelmed like that, and to help them to do that, I think is a really big thing that we can do. I sort of have an ABC, when that happens, when we flip our lid, and we all do, every mum and dad, in
Yeah.
normal life, we flip our lid, it's what happens. A, accept how you feel, name it and tame it. B, take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. I say to the children, in like your favorite pizza. It always seems to be pepperoni. I don't know always, but and out like a bubble. So actually, because by doing that, your body can't be stressed and relaxed at the same time. So as soon as you start to do something physically that will help you to
Yeah.
relax, that will help. We talk a lot about breathing, don't we? But that's actually putting it into practice, and that's C. So accept how you feel, breathe, connect, think about that connection between your upstairs and your downstairs brain.
Yeah.
And choose something that's inside your control. And I think that's why for me, Sue, all the seminars that I run and webinars for parents everywhere around the world, building that relaxation into your daily routine is not a luxury, it's a must.
So it's a necessity, isn't it?
Yeah, because if you're doing it on a daily basis, and it's as essential part of your routine as cleaning your teeth, doing something, then actually what happens is that when you have those moments, those really difficult moments in life, or just in the day of a normal family life, that you have that as a tool in your toolbox to help you to manage. Because actually, for our children to see us modeling stress in healthy ways,
Yeah.
That's really important. And it's hard, isn't it? When you're a parent going through something which is really difficult and really hard, a lot of us, and me included, we turn to unhealthy ways to manage that stress.
Yeah.
And that that takes working out, that takes support. And that's why I think people like the work that you do, Sue, in terms of having a divorce doctor who can actually coach somebody on a one-to-one basis, is really essential. Because mums and dads, they are fantastic at putting everybody else first and shuffling themselves down to the bottom of the pack. And actually, you are the engine room. Whatever your family is going through, you are the engine room. So you need to be in the very best place to be able to be the best to yourself, the best, that you can for yourself, the best mum, the best daughter, the best partner, whatever it is. And so, yeah, absolutely. That's a luxury.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I always encourage people to do is to end the day on a high.
Yeah.
So think of 3 things that you're either proud of or that have gone really well, that have happened in the day.
Yeah.
Because our brains are so tuned into the negatives.
Yeah.
If we can overpower that.
Yeah, absolutely.
By thinking of positive things.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Keeping a gratitude journal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really great idea, because we don't we tend to fall into bed thinking, why did I do that? Why did I shout at them because they didn't get into their pajamas? You can fall into bed feeling a real nag and thinking about all the things you haven't done or should have done differently, and all the things you've got to do tomorrow. And I think in that moment, and the neuroscientists, I'm a great, I do lots of work for Thrive Global, which is a website which is fantastic. And it's all sort of evidence-based from the scientists about, what's happening in our brain and why certain things work. And they can demonstrate sort of quite clearly, the scientists, that, if you actually just take even as little as 90 seconds to bring yourself into the moment, or to, think about your positive mindset, that can actually make a sort of real difference to kind of what's happening in terms of your mental health and well-being. And so I think that whole area of sleep, and going to bed just thinking about something that's gone okay or made you smile. And I'm a great believer, Sue, by the way, of having photos all around the house, because again, the scientists can sort of demonstrate that if you look at a photo, it pretty much mirrors kind of the emotional response in your brain that happened when you experienced it the first time around.
Yeah, and the brain can't differentiate between imagination and reality.
No, and so that's a brilliant kind of, is it, in terms of, thinking, especially on those days when children might be having a wobble when they go to bed, to have a wall that is full of kind of pictures and experiences, people who are there, to help them feel loved and secure. But I think that whole area of the sleep routine for mums and dads, not just mums and dads going through separation and divorce, all mums and dads, is a really important one, to look at and really look, get up close and personal. And there are lots of sort of tips and things around, but I think the one that has made the most difference to all of the hundreds of parents that I've coached is, keep your devices out of the bedroom.
Absolutely.
And buy an alarm clock. I've had so many emails from people all around the world, all sorts of jobs and things, saying that was great, we bought an alarm clock, because we know the research, tends to be the last thing that we touch before we go to bed, and the first thing we look at when we wake up, and actually kind of modeling healthy sleep routines, I think is really important, because children who are involved in their parents going through some kind of relationship issue, that's one of the big things that can be affected, isn't it? Sleep.
And of course, sleep affects all sorts of other areas of your life, and other areas of life are going to affect sleep. So get that as the central part. I know when I'm going through the health and wellness wheel with my clients, always sleep I start off with, because to me that's the critical element of coping.
And it just makes such a fundamental difference, doesn't it? If you wake up and you've had a good night's sleep, you behave in a completely different way, you have a different mindset, don't you?
And even if you take a cat nap in the middle of the day, that could just recharge the batteries for coping later.
Absolutely. Because I think, as a mum or a dad, you want to do what helps you to manage your stress in a healthy way, whatever that is, and it's different things for different people, isn't it? But actually finding something and trying it, I think habits, if we do them sort of confidently, calmly and consistently, we can establish some really good habits in 30 days, and if you get to the first 7, you're likely to get to that 30. So I think whatever works for you, because everyone has a different opinion, don't they, about what you should do and how you should do things. Listen to yourself and think, what works for me, and give it a go and do it consistently, whether that's an energy nap or whatever it is that works for you.
So have you done any work with single parents or people that are actually co-parenting, and helped the two separate parents to co-parent effectively?
And I think, this is probably the hardest thing, isn't it, in any kind of relationship breakdown. But we also know for children, it's the really important one that does have a powerful impact. And so actually helping to keep the lines of communication open between parents who may have separated, who are trying, and it might be kind of acrimonious, or they might be trying their hardest, to co-parent effectively. It's really tough, because actually, in normal, there's no such thing as normal family, but in a family where there's no separation or divorce, parents still argue, they still disagree about how to do, discipline, education, bedtimes, food. And so that whole area of communication is a really tough one, and particularly tough if you are in a situation where you feel that your partner has behaved in a way which you find really difficult and unacceptable, and you might hold responsible for the breakdown of the family unit. And so I think, the important thing to try and keep in mind, and I know it's really difficult, is that the children are at the core. And actually, when I'm sitting and talking to parents, we, I like to have a photo of them there. I think it's obviously, they're connected with them all the time. They're connected with their heart all the time. But just to have that kind of visual reminder of just so at the darkest times, the hardest times, you can dig deep and whatever your feelings are for each other, that you try, you won't be perfect, it's tough, it's climbing a mountain, but you try your hardest to keep them at the center, and to ask yourself, is what I am doing and my partner's doing, and we're trying to do together, the best for our children?
Yeah.
And I think that is a really difficult thing to keep focused on when, not are you dealing with the kind of the emotional challenges, but there might be financial, there, health, have impact right across the board. And so to actually keep those lines of communication open with a partner, I think is the toughest challenge and the most important one in very many ways, because there's no doubt in my mind, and I've worked again with hundreds of children who going through some kind of family breakdown experience, that the children who can manage it sort of the most effectively are those where the parents are working really hard, not perfectly, working really hard at putting them at the center and making sure that they know that that child is loved, that's secure, and that there might be kind of differences in opinion, but they're working them out, and they can be, civil and calm to each other. And one of the really difficult things, I know, mums and dads have said this, to me so often, and I'm sure you've heard the same, so it's really difficult not to be negative about your partner when they've been behaved in a way which absolutely you think is absolutely appalling. It's really difficult not to talk about that, not to say things to your children, and maybe when they've gone off for the weekend to spend the weekend with mum or with dad, or the other parent, and they come back and you can feel you're dealing with all the kind of fallout of what's happened during that weekend. And that is really tough, isn't it? That is really tough. That is when we have to dig really deep and think, I'm not perfect, but what can I do that will help and keeping my children at the core? Because we know in the kind of the short and the longer term, that is much better for children if they are actually trying to deal with this difficult situation anyway, in an environment where they feel that they're supported by both parents, and that both parents are working at, and it might not be perfect, but working at coming up with, a solution that works for the family.
And that's the important thing, isn't it, that every child deserves to be loved by both parents, and to love both parents unconditionally.
Absolutely.
They don't need to hear what's going on in the other parent's mind about the other parent. And in the long term, we need to be acting as role models for our children to show them how we can deal with adversity in a strong, positive way.
And that's really tough, isn't it? We know the theory of that is much easier than
absolutely.
And actually, I think it's good for us to share, not just when children, families are going through separation, divorce, but just generally, it's good practice as parents to kind of share with our children those times when we are finding it a bit tough, and to talk about the things that have, that help us when we feel sad or fearful or angry, and what we do. And I had one mum, and she said, I've always kept it from my children, actually, that when how I'm feeling, and I think they just think I'm the perfect mum because I kind of just get on and do it. But then as soon as she started, to open up, and they saw that she was vulnerable and she was working at different things, she said that really sort of significantly changed their relationship. She was being open and honest about how she was feeling, but not just talking about it. It's like we said before, if I say to you, oh, I'm really tired, and I go and say to somebody, downstairs, oh, I'm exhausted. By the time I get to the third person, I'm feeling shattered. So it's not just talking about it. When we're talking and listening to our children about how they feel, it's important to give them that space to talk about how they're feeling. I think it's also really important not to get in the well with them. They are in a well, and actually we want to stay on the outside and empower them to help them get out of the well. We don't want to get in the well with them, because if we all just talk about how we're feeling, and it's the important part of the process, but it's a first step, if all we do is talk about how frightened we are, our emotional, that downstairs part of the brain is just feeling more frightened and more frightened and more frightened, and it's growing. inside. So we want to talk about, we want to kind of acknowledge how we feel, but we also want to think about what we're going to do, how we can manage that emotion.
Yeah.
And to sort of take a moment and to actually come up, lots of mums and dads and children who've actually kind of got their own little toolkits. They have like a jar. When they find something that works, that helps them, they put it in the tool. Just put it in the jar on a sticky.
Yeah.
And when they're having a moment and they're kind of thinking, what should we do? When I feel angry, or a child is disappointed at school, they get all the stickies out and they put them there and they say, oh, this worked and this worked. So I think that's kind of remembering things that have helped you and kind of commit them, because family life is so busy, isn't it, that kind of you get through the day and the next day comes and you forgot what you did yesterday.
Yeah.
So actually helping children and parents to remember what it is, and it can be a small thing or a big thing, but to help them to remember that they have got tools in their toolbox that have helped them to manage their emotions successfully in the past.
Yeah, and that is the role of the coach, isn't it? To give them a whole range of tools and then let them choose which one is appropriate for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So how can people get in touch with you?
So I'm always around, Sue, at the Parent Coaching Academy. So www.theparentcoachingacademy.com.
And that's all one word, isn't it?
It is.
The Parent Coaching Academy.
Quite a long one, but it's there. Yes, yeah. So that's what I do. And I've sort of written several books that people have found useful, and I run my seminars and webinars, and I have to say that I've learned the most over the years from the children and from the parents. I always love when I get a call or an email that says Lorraine, you won't believe what happened. And of course I will believe what happened, because I think parents are so resourceful, they're so problem solving, they're so practical, they're so amazing in so many ways, that actually when they have the kind of the space to think about what's going on and what they want to do to try and improve the situation in a positive way, parents have they have fantastic results. We ran a survey actually last year at the Parent Coaching Academy, so with 1,000 children who are aged 9 to 11, and we said we asked them who manages stress the best, and actually it was such an interesting one, because they said teachers definitely manage stress the best,
right?
They were at the top. Children regarded themselves as in the middle, and parents came way down at the bottom. Sorry, mums and dads, I know I'm down there with you, but in the children's perspective, it was parents who couldn't manage stress, and I think that's sort of it's a really good kind of moment, isn't it, to think, okay, so if that's what the children are thinking, how can we flip that on its head? Because if we're managing our stress and modeling it well, and it's hard for us, isn't it, whatever we're going through, then that's what our children are learning to do. And there was one child who actually said that it's none of those things, Mrs. Thomas, it's Alexa. What is it about Alexa? What is it about Alexa? And he said, well, she's always, she doesn't shout. She's always really calm. And actually, when I've run workshops, seminars in companies and schools, I've talked about the Alexa kind of factor. And it's true. And I've had mums and dads who stood up and said, oh, well, actually, it's true. We programmed Alexa to do part of the bedtime routine. And the children listened to her, and they said it was kind of really just interesting listening to Alexa, because she's calm, she's consistent, she's confident, and so just taking a back seat. So the reason I say that is just because I think that was quite it was one survey, but it was quite a snapshot into how children perceive we manage stress. And there's never been a more stressful time, has there, Sue? To be honest, in lots of ways. Lockdown and COVID and homeschooling and working from home and all those kind of things. But we all also do, and I think it's true of walking with children on that journey through separation and divorce. We have, just like in lockdown, the potential to come out of it more resilient.
Absolutely.
And I think the same is true of separation and divorce. I think we walk that journey with our children. We don't want to push them in a particular direction or pull them. We walk with them. and it will be hard, it will be tricky. There will be things that happen in that experience in terms of your relationship with your child and your communication and what happens, that will actually really strengthen both of you and strengthen that relationship. And so it is a mountain to climb, but once you come over that mountain, and it has an impact, doesn't it? We know for many years to come, it is something which we're managing as we go. It's not kind of that's done. But actually it does enable you as a parent and as a child to kind of look back and think, actually, you know, that there was something that grew inside me in terms of my strength when I was going through that difficult situation. And it might not seem it at the time, so overwhelming, but it's like all things in life, isn't it? We often you know, learn the most and grow the most through those things that are actually really painful for us.
Yeah, and it's seeing divorce as a new start, not just as an end of something. It's the start of something new. And it's whatever you make that something new.
And it's a different chapter.
And
the way you communicate that different chapter, you know, with your family, with your children, is absolutely, you know, key, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You know, in terms of your frame of mind, and that's the tough bit, you know, recognizing that one, you know, chapter is closed and another one is beginning, but you have a lot of things inside your you know, inside your core, you know, resilience and your relationships with your children, and always remembering, you know, to ask for help. I mean, that's another thing I think really important, you know, for mums and dads and children. Lots of children that I see think, oh, you know, I have to do everything myself, I have to get through this myself. Really important, I think, that, you know, we send that message loud and clear as parents, all parents, you know, that actually it's a real strength to ask for support, lots of different people to give and ask for support, and that there are lots of people who can help us through it. We're never alone.
Absolutely. So I'm just so grateful for you coming, and those words of wisdom have been amazing. So I'll put Lorraine's contact details in the broadcast notes below the podcast. So just a massive thanks for giving up all this time. It's been so lovely talking to you.
Oh, it's been great to chat with you, Sue, and I know you do a fantastic job. And I just want to say, my one thing as I go is, you know, the world we leave to our children depends on the children we leave in our world.
Absolutely.
And I think, you know, you do a fantastic job at helping lots of people in so many different ways. So I've really enjoyed it, and I hope we can do it again soon.
Thank you. So, as well as being a certified divorce coach, I was divorced myself at age 50. So I've been in the same situation as you. Let me walk down the path with you as your thinking partner. Thank you for listening today. And it's my prayer that this show helps you or someone in your life facing divorce. Reach out to us at www.divorce-doctor.com or find me on Facebook or LinkedIn, Sue Palmer-Conn.